In 2019, we began to build our dream.
But the journey started long before you were invited to watch.
We walked a path that spanned nearly 2 decades.
There were times of joy, pain, and everything in between.
Our lives have completely changed, and we're ready to tell you how it happened.
We're not holding back.
Our mistakes, regrets,
What we wish we could change, our best decisions.
and if we do it again, you'll hear it all.
Come back in time with us behind the camera and answer the question,
Is self-building worth it?
All right, guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Is Self-Building Worth It? So today we're gonna have an exciting video of putting in the gravel driveway. And I can tell you, this was right at the beginning, and it was one of our biggest budget mistakes all around was gravel. And that'll come into play a little bit later when we're doing the pad and backfilling and stuff like that. But I think I estimated like maybe $3,000 or so for rock for our driveway and for the build pad. And we ended up spending 10 grand, I think.
I think we spent 10 grand over what you had projected.
Yeah.
There was something like that. Like it was a lot more.
Yeah, and some of that was my own fault on how I prepped the pad, which we'll get into in that video. Our driveway was pretty long. I think it was like 600
It's like
yards
500 and some odd feet.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was right on schedule, but where it came into play is backfilling around our storm shelter and not starting out with a level building pad, which we'll cover later. But right off the bat, we blew our budget.
Yeah.
So, second thing to keep in mind is when we start this video, it was June 3rd when I was getting the driveway in, and my plan was to have this driveway in back in like the end of April, end of March, early April, but we had the wettest spring in the history of Iowa that year. So it just, right off the bat, our time got extended and our budget got blown.
Right. And in Iowa, since we have extreme seasons, like losing like 2 months of good build time really, it pushes you back more than 2 months.
Yeah. I will say in this video, the way that I was taught to prepare a driveway has worked very well. I took all of the sod out, probably the top 3 or 4 inches of soil, and then we laid down 3-inch clean rock as our base. And it's really rough to drive on, but we left that through the entirety of our build and then came back after the fact and put our finished gravel on it. And that does a couple things. One, you got to get all the sod off. You got to get a couple inches of the topsoil off and then get 3-inch of rock down, because you're going to have lots of heavy trucks coming in for deliveries, all your equipment. And if you put all your finished rock on there or just use finished rock, it's going to get pressed down in the ground. And so keep that in mind. Make sure you prepare your driveway properly because it will hold up pretty well if you put the 3-inch rock down.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been on some build sites where you might have like a buddy that says that he's got a piece of equipment and he can prep your build site or something like that and put in your driveway, and the end result of somebody who doesn't really understand what it is that they need to do is going to cost you a lot more in the long run. So we blew our budget on gravel, but you're going to blow it even more. If you don't have at least this was prepared well. This was just probably a miscalculation.
Well, the driver was prepared well.
Yes.
The building pad was not prepared well. My buddy was me.
My bad.
So, I'm the one that screwed that up.
Right.
I've been able to help a lot of people in there, that we build for now, because obviously I learned that the hard way. So one of the things I loved about this property is the fact that you couldn't see up in it. And so the driveway was really steep, and I kept it a little bit steeper than I probably should have. I mean, hindsight's 2020. Like if I'd have known I would have had all these trailers and equipment. Deliveries is really difficult. Like you'll see later on, I had to lay my trusses in the road because there's no way a semi can get in my driveway. So I think if I had to do it over again, I would have cut more out of the entrance, and I would have widened the entrance quite a bit just so we could swing bigger trailers in there. And there are certain times we had to get rid of the minivan.
Yeah.
Because you get snow and you just couldn't get in the driveway.
Yeah.
One, we're on gravel road, but two, it was just too steep that two-wheel drive, low profile tires just don't work too good.
Right.
Anything, like what else do you want to talk about? Justin?
Well, I would say this is the first time you're adding something new to the property, right?
Yeah.
Everything else was taken away. So was there any feelings of where something's finally happening?
Yeah.
You know, Emily, Paul?
I mean, Emily was stuck at home with the kids. So I guess emotions, how were you feeling when we got a gravel driveway in? Even though how many times had you even been out here?
Oh gosh, I mean, maybe twice, maybe once. I don't know. I was not very dialed into this project for the first while.
Yeah, I can tell you I was pumped getting this driveway in. As you can see from the video that I actually did the land clearing, which will be the next video, prior to getting the driveway in just because it was too wet. And so I can tell you that, getting this driveway in and kind of, have my vision start to come to fruition a little bit was pretty exciting for me. I mean, I had just coming off a 15-year police career and a year at what I felt like was prison.
I think like 2 days before this, though, we sold the house that we had been living in West Des Moines, and so that was pretty exciting because then we had all of that cash because we had paid cash for that house, and so we had the money that we needed to live on, the money that we needed to get to make some of these major purchases. So that was pretty exciting, I think. Just that relief of like we're able to get going.
Kind of move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know like at the end of the video that I brought all of you out after I got the driveway in and I had brought the mower out and mowed and kind of just to get everybody out there for the first time and kind of like envision where the house was going to sit and whatnot. So that was, it's kind of crazy when you look at that part of the video and see like where we've come. And it's been a long time.
Oh, long time. Yeah.
It's been over 4 years.
That's almost 5.
It just doesn't seem like that's even possible.
I agree.
So I guess, looking back, even though sometimes like the process feels like it takes a long time, overall, time flies by real fast.
What about, you, and I don't think you did a video on this, maybe you talked about it when you laid out the house, but you had to kind of know where the house was going to be to put the drive in. So
Right.
you want to talk about how you kind of determined that?
Yeah, and you have like when I was...
Those flags, I assume that's what the flags were.
Yeah, so a couple things to mention. I had it in my mind what we were going to do for a house. Hypothetically, I wanted a ranch and all that, but it's really hard to envision what you can build or what is right until you actually have your property in my mind. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I determined where the drive was going to go. I did bring Emily out. It was just me and you. We had left the kids somewhere, and we brought a tape measure out. The grass was 2 feet high, so you really couldn't see, but I had a really good idea where I wanted the house. And, we pulled tapes, put some, orange flags out, and to get an idea kind of, hey, where would our approach to our garage be? Where would, the big windows be? I can't remember. I had all this drawn out at that point? At least
so.
at the, like I had the shell. I don't know if I really had the interior like kind of figured out.
Right, because we were still living in that house in West Des Moines when you had your preliminary budget and your graph paper out and stuff. So we definitely fine-tuned the interior. But I think at that point we knew that we wanted, I think you had even picked out doors for it. So we were pretty far along. Like we knew how big it was going to be and everything like that.
Yeah. Another thing you might have to navigate, depending on where you live, is code, and that's kind of a sticky subject for me because I think the code is good, but it's also bad. that's just going to be dependent. And we'll talk more about this as we go. I'll talk to you about how to make your post frame code compliant as far as structurally fireproofing it, all the stuff that the code requires. But, luckily, I mean, part of the reason we built where we built is because I had dealt with counties, I have dealt with code officials, and nothing against all code officials. It's just like any other position. There's good, there's bad, and there's the ugly. So I had experienced the negative side of it. I worked for government for 15 years. We did a bunch of remodels in places where we had to do inspections and stuff. And I wasn't worried about my structure being structurally sound or built, or I wasn't looking to cheat and do something inferior. I just wanted to be left alone. So I guess if that's, kind of what you want, you have to determine where you want to build.
Yeah.
Because it can really affect your budget. It can really affect your time. And I've learned all this just building for other people in some of those areas, how much time delay you can have, how much frustration it can be.
Right.
And stuff like that. So,
and it's all part of like what somebody is willing to concede and to in order to have this life. So the concession, typically, if you want to build in an area that is going to give you a lot more freedom and things like that, you're going to give up some convenience. I feel like we're super fortunate that we're only like 10 minutes from our town that has a grocery store, a hospital, things like that. There's a lot of places in the United States where you'd be a lot more remote than that in order to be in a county that is going to be hands off with you. So, so we understand that that's why people live in some of these counties with all of these different regulations, is because it's about convenience, it's about their job, it's about their earning potential, all of those things. But you just have to weigh what is best for your family in that situation. And for us, we felt like it was worth putting that at the top of the list and then creating our life around that.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because yes, some of you aren't just going to have the ability to move out further where you don't have to deal with that. So one thing you have to understand is if you're going to build in an area where you have rigorous inspections, it is going to cost you more money. Mm-hmm. There is no way around it. It's going to cost you more money and it's going to take you more time. And I mean, that's just another thing that you have to weigh of what you want and what your conveniences you want. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you said.
And it's probably going to cost you more for your overall project in terms of getting property. Land is going to get more expensive the closer you are to convenience. It's going to cost you more in labor because you have people that are living in these places where the cost of living is higher than in the more remote areas. On the flip side, you're going to have a bigger pool to choose from in terms of your contractors and stuff like that. So you have a better chance of getting somebody super skilled, whereas you go remote. But if you're DIYing, you're DIYing. So, you don't have to worry about that as much. And so those are the considerations to make. We talk to people that they do literally uproot their lives and they move somewhere else in order for them to achieve this goal that they have. But we understand that that's not a possibility for everybody. You just have to understand that that's what you're giving up or that's what you're taking on by those decisions.
So another thing we want to cover in this series is what tools we had or what we wish we would have had to make this easier. So I guess up to this point, I had started a tree farm back when we lived in Illinois, and we saved up enough money that we bought a skid steer. So I had a skid steer, and I really believe that is a crucial piece of equipment. If you are going to self-build your whole project, it's one of those pieces of equipment that's almost a must-have. It's one of those things you're going to use almost constantly throughout the project. And if you're going to live out in the country, it's going to come into use, and you're probably going to need it as part of your kind of just tools that you need to take care of your property. But that's what I used for preparing the driveway, is just the skid steer and the tooth bucket, and to dig it all out. But we'll try to, if you guys have any questions about tools as we go through this, we'll try to cover that as we go through the project. But I think that's the biggest thing if you're going to DIY this thing is a skid steer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've worked with and talked to people who they buy a tractor or they buy something else. And just this really is the overall, in my opinion, the skid steer is the overall best option for people and gives you the most flexibility. Of course, every piece of equipment has its own pros and cons.
Yeah.
But
Overall, it's the best all around.
You haven't really run into a situation all that often living here, just doing things that you're like, oh man, the skid steer isn't what I want.
No, because I can go rent an attachment for a couple $100 for the day to do it. Is that convenient? No, but it beats having multiple pieces of equipment. Maybe we will get to that point, right? Where I'll have a tractor and some other things.
Yeah, I got to fill up that shop that you're going to build.
Yeah, so I think that's it as far as this point is just we have the skid steer.
Yeah.
And then the next video is going to be clearing and taking care of all of the brush, the trees, what equipment we did use for that, and kind of how to navigate that whole process.
So if you are curious about this DIY thing and you want to join a community of people that are going after the same thing, or you just want to understand more about this type of build, join us on Patreon. We have monthly live video chats. We have weekly discussions. There's a lot of different resources that you can tap into, lots of great discounts that you have access to. And if you are still in the planning phase of your barndominium and you're looking for a designer, we would highly recommend our architectural design firm, Back 40 Buildings. We create wonderful, beautiful barndominium designs. We can do stick frame, steel frame, and post frame construction.
Yeah, so I guess that's going to be a wrap on this episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and we will catch you on the next episode.